Hello everyone, I am here today with a short video. It is talking a little bit about some of the books I found this weekend. And I want to kick things off, as you may know from some of my other videos I've made. I'm not really trying to do a lot of the typical tropes when it comes to making videos about books on the internet. So I don't really find much interest in doing the, talking about what books I read this month, what books I want to read this month, or, stuff I bought, because, it's a whole conversation about consumerism, and I'm no better, I guess, today. But I felt like I found very unique books today, or not today, but this weekend, and I thought I might as well discuss them, show them off in a bit, and I'm not going to keep it too long or too crazy. So, what is this? So, over the weekend, I came across this event that was going on. I did not know about this until about an hour prior. But here in the city of Chicago, there was a seller of rare books. On Instagram, they go by the name of Paper and Plastic Chicago. Actually, what is it? Yeah, Paper or Plastic Chicago. There's some underscores in between all the words. I'll put it in the description. I cannot put links, as I've said many times. YouTube wants me to give them my driver's license, and that's not worth it just to put some hyperlinks in the description. So we'll get into it. So I went to this sale, like I said, Paper or Plastics Chicago. It was in the near west side of Chicago. It's just north of Union Park, if you know where that is, and Cobra Lounge, and it's over. For some people who maybe are not local to the city, near the United Center, stuff like that, just west of downtown. And it was in a very fancy wine bar, because that's what is out there nowadays. And I talked to the vendor once I had got these books. And I was like, hey, how often do you do these? And he's like, well, this is like an overwhelmingly great showing this weekend. I'm going to have to restock. And honestly, I was surprised that this guy had the kind of stock he had. So, what is that? What was all of it? Mostly, I would say it was a lot of literary stuff. A lot of 20th century for sure, like especially the latter half, like at the 1950 to 2000, I guess. But a lot of that like 50s through 80s kind of stuff, typical stuff I'm looking for. But a lot of hardcovers, a lot of like not necessarily first editions, but I would say at least like of the era of when a lot of classic books came out. I saw a really cool copy of Blood Meridian, that the paperback of the original Gravity's Rainbow, which I know is not the optimal collector's one, but for a lot of people that it is, it was in pretty good condition. So I mean, I'm sufficiently happy with my 1995 one, and that's a book that you're gonna wear through. So I don't really want like the fanciest version of. What else was there? There was a Eve Babbitt's Eve's Hollywood in hardcover, like the original 70s one, which I thought was really cool. Also, like a lot of these were books that I already had. So it was kind of like, it did help, because the prices weren't crazy. That's the thing. I'm gonna get to what I got, but they weren't cheap either. This is rare and old books, vintage books, I should say. And so yeah, it was a lot of interesting stuff in that aspect. I'm hoping they do another one soon. There was a lot of sci-fi as well. So there's a whole shelf of Philip K. Dick books. There was, some nonfiction as well. There was a lot of reference books or architectural stuff from that time period as well. And all this stuff, I was just amazed by the quality of it too, because I'm just used to, like, as long as you're able to read the copy, I don't really care. But some of the stuff was really great. So let's get into it. First thing on here, first thing I grabbed, and this was in a little plastic sleeve. This was $10. This is J.G. Ballard's The Four-Dimensional Nightmare. Now, I have never heard of this book. I had never seen it before. This is, I believe, a UK Penguin edition, so I'm always, as you can tell, not from the Commonwealth. I don't speak any sort of royalty English, as you can hear. So it's always amazing to find these, UK Penguins. I started finding them when I was in Canada last summer. I actually found some really nice Voinovich copies, which I recently moved this, which we can tell there's not much stuff around. So those are packed away, and someday I will show those. But there were some really nice 70s Vladimir Voinovich, his UK Penguin editions. So that's what this is. The J.G. Ballard, I still haven't read anything from him. This is not a popular one from him by any means. I mean, Atrocity Exhibition, like the Danny Brown album, is probably his most known. Crash like the Charlie XCX song is also a big one. Everyone's just making. We're gonna have to have a fourth dimensional nightmare over here. That's actually a pretty good song or album title. So, yeah, no, I'm excited to read this one. I might actually get to this one soon because, like I said, all my stuff's packed away, so I gotta find something to read. It's from 1962, I want to say, and it's a little bit of that like proto cyberpunk in a sense, at least from what I've read from this description. And other J.G. Ballards, I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, he's got like the Empire of the Sun or something like that. That's not science fiction. That's about World War II. I don't know what else. I haven't read anything from him, so I don't know. If you read this one, do you think this is a good starting point? I've read a Heinlein book recently that is like not one of the popular ones, and as a starting point, and it was okay. So maybe I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to start off getting introductions from authors from their not popular books. So, like I said, $10. Great condition. Always cool to find a UK edition of a book, especially when you want to read. Other two that I found. Now, I have not done any videos on this yet. I've been wanting to do a Richard Brautigan video because I feel like I haven't read everything, and I haven't even read everything that I own, especially now. But I have a very nice collection of these books. Now you can go out and you can buy the compendiums that have about 3 editions or 3 of his works in one, which is probably the more economical, more smarter idea to do when you're reading one of his, when you want to collect and read his books. Because I haven't even read everything that's in those compendiums. But I love the old paperbacks, and I love the old hardcovers, and I love just that having those books of the time when they were coming out. Especially for Brautigan. I'm fine with that for a lot of the other stuff. I can get whatever other copy, but for Richard Brautigan, it kind of landed on I'm just going to be getting all the classic paperbacks. So they're not always necessarily in the nicest condition, but I think it would be fun to kind of like show that off and maybe go through some of my favorite stories, the ones I've read, and some of the ones I haven't read, my plans on it. I'm not trying to burn through them because Richard Brautigan books you could read in like a day or a weekend. So I could easily read all of them right now, but I don't want to. I want to not go through everything all at once. So I've been reading about one every 6 months right now. So I'm coming up on time to read one, so maybe it'll be one of these. Probably not, though, because these are the more the obscure ones, so I'd rather get to some of the bigger ones. First off, we have the Tokyo Montana Express, which is this his last one? It might be his last book. This is from 1980, and if you know the story of Mr. Brautigan on NFL Sunday in 1984, well, let's just say they didn't find him for a little bit later, and then later on in that season, they go on. Joe Montana, Johnny Football wins the Super Bowl and really ends the '60s in terms of San Francisco. And so, yeah, the Tokyo Montana Express. This is from his Japanese era, which also leads into the other book. There's a very nice picture of him on the back, which is the most recent and more. Well, obviously it's the most recent. Most contemporary, I'd say. It's very 80s. I can't get a good not glare of this. It was very nice of them to put these in the, a bit of a saran wrap for the hardcovers, but you can't really see much. So the Tokyo Montana Express, I believe this is just, all his books are really collections. They're not necessarily, they may be considered novels, but they're kind of like fragmented in how they tell stories. They're very short chapters or very short vignettes. And so I believe this one is more of just a collection of short stories. But I'm excited to read it because, like I said, I haven't read anything as late as this, especially if it's the last one. Most recent I read, which was back in January, I read Willard and His Bowling Trophies, which is from 1975. And I really like that one. That one was a very good one. Also a hardcover I got, it's in great condition. It looked like no one had ever read it. This one looks like no one's ever read it. Should I flip to a random one? There we go. Hangover as Folk Art. That actually sounds like something worth reading. For Jim Harrison. Can I read that? I don't know if that should become this video. It seems like the ones where I read are the ones that do better. So we'll read a little bit of this one, and if I get bored, I'll stop. All right? It's not free. I guess it is. Hangover as Folk Art for Jim Harrison. Yesterday, I had a hangover here in Tokyo. That was so painful and exhausting that I could only think of it as a grotesque folk art. It was being sold by vendors that you don't want to know about. Normally, a really bad hangover bites the dust when the sun goes down. It dies like a snake. The hangover didn't die at all. It changed into folk art made from my central nervous system, my stomach, and the little stretches of imagination I call my brain. The folk art took the shapes of badly carved, smelly little dolls, undesirable, tainted trinkets constructed from rusty beer cans and coal, paintings of alligator shit on swamp bark, and of course, last but not least, colorful native shirts woven out of the underwear removed from corpses by albino grave robbers who can only rob graves on full moon nights. It's a weird page turn. They work at the most 12 nights a year, and the rest of the time it's unemployment for them. They stay around the house and watch a lot of television. During the commercials, they beat their wives. In other words, I simply don't want a day like yesterday again in my life. When the hangover finally ends, the folk art vendors had vanished, taking their strange and dubious wares with them. They also took every feeling in my body, with them except for an abstract chalky awareness that I was still breathing. Right, Jim? That's a fun one. That was actually quite intriguing. But yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know what this book's about. The Tokyo Montana Express. I don't think you know any better after hearing that. So what was the third and final? Actually, I should say two. That book was, how much did I spend on this one? $15. $15 for a great hardcover. Most of my Brautigans I've bought, which granted have been paperbacks, have been, I'd say about that price, probably cheaper too. Like I would say it's anywhere between $5 and $20 I spend on a Brautigan. I don't spend more than that. So this one, I think it actually leads up to be the most I spent, because this was $20, is the Sombrero Fallout. Sombrero Fallout. A Japanese novel, as they call it. But it's a beautiful cover. I've never actually seen this one. I'd seen the Tokyo Montana one. Yeah, another hardcover. It's in great condition. This one is this is more of a novel, I guess, in the structure of how you describe a Brautigan book as a novel. And like I said, $20, and it is also in great condition. Well, let's see, this is the Brautigan on the back. There's always great Brautigans on these. He's such a style icon, as you'd call him. I mean, this in 1970, I think this is 1976. That's pretty typical for the day, but I mean, he was dressing like this 10 years earlier. So, he's a crazy guy. So, let's see. I'm going to flip to a random one, and if the title intrigues me, these have got not as exciting titles, and they're a little bit longer, because this is a novel. I got to find one that I think is not going to be terrible for reading. I don't want to look too hard, because that's... Alright, we're going to do the one I started on. Clothes. Oh, shoot. It's getting too dark in here, too. Clothes, right? It's about 2 pages, which is about as long as most of his stories go. Let's see. Clothes. After his funeral, and of course this is more of a novel, so we're getting no context here, and I don't have any context either. After his funeral, they took their clothes off and got into bed. They took their clothes off in response to an invisible signal. Nothing was said, nor was there a gesture made, but something happened between them that caused them to start taking their clothes off at exactly the same time. A fourth dimensional exchange, boy, where's the fucking book? A fourth dimensional nightmare exchange has been made between them and the beginning of their lovemaking. 2 years of it was set in motion. She took her clothes off, like a kite takes gently to a warm April wind. He fumbled his clothes off like a football game being played in November mud. He had never been very good at taking his clothes off, and for that matter, putting them on. He was also one of those people who had a lot of trouble drying themselves after a bath. When he was through drying himself, 50% of his body was still wet. While she was taking her clothes off, she watched him take his off, and she wondered if he were that way in bed. She hoped not. She enjoyed making love and liked it done in a way that pleased her. She did not have much patience for men who were bad in bed. Fortunately for him, most of the time he was very good in bed. It always surprised women. It was one of his best personal traits. Unfortunately for her, it was to contribute to her more or so, more or less wasting 2 years of her life. Anyway, that's how she looked at it when it was over. Of course, many times when it was going on, she thought it was very good. The good times tended to vanish into retrospect when she examined them. She had poured 2 years of her life into him and more of her youth than she intended. After she took her clothes off, she slipped into bed and under the covers. She watched him standing there fumbling off the last of his clothes. Interesting, she thought. One would never imagine this by reading his books. She already knew that he was going to be quite different from his books. She just hoped that he was going to be good in bed. And was stated earlier, unfortunately for her, he was. So, that already feels very in line with Willard and his bowling trophies. Like I said, this is 1976, so but same era. Another novel, another story about people fucking in the 70s, and surprisingly, this author insert character, is that Mr. Brautigan over here? Who knows? Is actually very good in bed, even though he looks like a fucking weirdo. That's how those characters go. So yeah, that was a fun exercise of a random Brautigan. I think that honestly I might do that for the Brautigan video, but going through all of my Brautigans. So if you're interested in that, let me know. All right, have a good one.